Hurricane watches are in effect for areas of New England and Atlantic Canada as Hurricane Lee barrels towards the shore. Good evening, I'm Mike Nasa with an 11:30 p.m. update. On this Thursday night, we continue to monitor Hurricane Lee, a very long-lasting Atlantic hurricane. There it is, sitting off the eastern seaboard between Bermuda and North Carolina as a very large and dangerous storm. Although the winds have come down quite a bit, it is now a Category 1 hurricane. The size is definitely the factor here when it comes to widespread impacts from this hurricane. It should move very, very close to New England and make a landfall, or at least have a direct impact, even if it's no longer a tropical cyclone by then, in areas of Atlantic Canada. Here's the latest on Hurricane Lee as of 11 p.m. Atlantic time. Lee was at 32.9 north, 67.6 west, winds of 85 miles per hour. The Air Force Hurricane Hunter aircraft have been flying around out there, and they've determined maximum winds of about that moderate to strong Category 1 intensity. So it's not anywhere near the Category 2, 3, 4, 5 hurricane it was last week. It is moving north at 14 miles per hour, although it did move a little bit more northeast today, and it should continue towards the east of north and then kind of north and slide right up into areas there of Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Newfoundland, areas there in Atlantic Canada. We do still have that hurricane watch in effect in those areas of Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, as well as all the way from the U.S.-Canadian border over to Stonington, Maine, with the possibility that this thing still has hurricane winds by Saturday when it moves onshore in areas there very near the Bay of Fundy and St. John's and that region there. I've been looking at some buoy observations to try and see how warm the waters are, because 80 degrees is kind of the default for having a hurricane. And if I look at some of these, the water temperatures, you're looking at, that one doesn't list it, water temperatures somewhere around 68 degrees. So that is not warm for hurricane development. So as the hurricane pulls to the north, the waters are going to get cooler and the wind shear will increase. It already is ahead of that front. Look at this. 100 knots of wind shear, and the hurricane is going to be moving right into that type of wind. So as it accelerates, as the shear and the trough impact it, and as the waters cool, we will see Lee weaken, but it's still going to pack a wallop of impacts of high surf, storm surge potential, flood potential with rain, and very gusty winds. We also have this area down here that I'll talk about, our developing system in the central Atlantic. That has a much better environment, as we saw with Lee last week. So this one could have hurricane potential down the road, although it'll probably stay away from land. Here's the water vapor imagery of Hurricane Lee. Not much left on the inside. It's very, very disorganized. The satellite appearance is very disheveled as it goes further north. Cooler waters, dry air entrainment, just getting knocked down, but it still has a lot of energy that's headed for areas there of the Northeast. And we now have the cloud shield in Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, all the way through Connecticut and Long Island. So you guys are going to eventually have impacts, definitely from the surf, but also from the potential for water rises. Now, the water rises right now, we're thinking anywhere from the border of Canada and the United States all down the Maine coastline, New Hampshire, all the way through Boston Harbor, Cape Cod, Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, Narragansett Bay, Montauk, all the way to Long Island Sound, 1 to 3 feet of storm surge with crashing waves on top. So it's definitely going to be a cold fall, high swell type of time. Stay out of the water, don't go near it. And then over here on Long Island, 1 to 2 feet. So water rises are a concern. Rainfall, the good news is usually when they're up this far north, they're moving pretty quickly. So we're looking at 2 to 4 inches in most areas there of Maine and areas there of New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. But there could be isolated higher amounts, and that could cause flooding. And we have a slight flood risk now for areas there of eastern Maine. So again, I've seen a lot of heavy flooding in New England before with these hurricanes as they weaken and pull on north. Everyone seems to forget them when they're not slamming Florida or really strong down there, and then they weaken and come north, but we forget sometimes the rainfall impacts could cause flooding issues. So we're going to watch this very, very carefully. Margot, still a hurricane, 75 miles per hour. It's way out there at 36.9 north, 38.9 west. It's moving east-northeast at 3, so this slow motion should continue. It should not become a hurricane again, and it should finally be gone, but this isn't until next Wednesday. So we're going to be dealing with Margot out there for a long time, meandering to the west of the Azores. Right now on that satellite loop, Margot's still spinning there, so this is going to be out there a long time, but nothing intense. On the left side of the screen here is Hurricane Lee, and then down here off screen, you can't see it, is our new area of interest we've been watching, and this from the National Hurricane Center is a 90% chance of development in the next couple of days. That's almost a sure thing, and it looks like it's going to become a tropical depression and probably a tropical storm and probably a hurricane, but it should move generally towards the northwest. When we look at the satellite, obviously it's coming together very well, a lot of building convection, so it looks like this one could be another storm in the making, and a very strong wave to the south of the islands, much lower. That looks interesting. We'll wait and see if anything comes from that. Right now, the computer model guidance takes our system here northwest and then north and turns it even further to the east than Lee became. So we dealt with Idalia and Franklin and Gert and Jose and Lee and Margot, and now this system, all of them have something in common. They're all turning out, which is great news. Of course, for the Florida Big Bend, it turned right into you as a major hurricane with the Idalia. But other than that, the impacts from Lee could have been a lot worse had it been a stronger storm or had it been moving quicker or further to the west. So be thankful for that. Although Bermuda, you're getting tropical storm force winds right now, and with this model forecast for our new system, you could have impacts from that down the road as well. The ensemble tracks, the European, they want to make it a hurricane and a strong one, but turn it, and then we also have Margot turning out there, Lee turning out, and then it shows another system developing, although if you watch, that one appears to be turning as well. So we could have a lot of activity, but a lot of it staying out over open water, which is great news if you don't want to deal with the damage and the power outages and the threat to life. But we're going to watch this area here of the Caribbean as time goes by. In fact, when you look at the wind shear tendencies, low for our system in the Atlantic, not that bad right now for Margot, but Lee, very high wind shear is heading into. But look at the Caribbean. I would watch this in October. We could see something brewing down there. I know a lot of people thought this might be like 1996, and in 96 we had a couple Western Caribbean storms. Hurricane Lily in 96, not the one in 2002 that struck Louisiana, but another Lily was a strong hurricane that moved over Cuba and the Bahamas. So we're going to see if anything happens down there over the coming month or two as hurricane season heads into the second half. And we'll watch it very, very carefully. But right now, all the attention should be on Hurricane Lee, a very long-tracked, classic Cape Verde hurricane. Although, hopefully there won't be much impact. If it doesn't do a lot, we'll probably see the name again in 6 years. But if the impact is bad, they'll have to retire it because it would be something more memorable. So we'll wait and see just what we get out of Lee. But right now, heavy rain, flood potential, high surf, water rise, and wind, all along areas there of New England and Atlantic Canada. I'm Mike Nasa with the latest. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to this channel and the other channels in the description link. And I'll be back next time with more on the tropics, and of course more on Lee.